The morning sun had barely climbed over the broken desert ridges when Jace Calderon, a lone rancher known more for silence than company, rode toward the old cottonwood grove where the rustlers had been spotted the night before, his horse's hooves thudding over the dry earth like slow warning drums while a trail of buzzards circled above as if whispering secrets of death. But when he broke through the trees, the sight that met his eyes almost snapped the breath clean out of him: 2 young Apache girls, barely in their late teens, bound and strung up as if some cruel message had been carved into the morning air, their bodies limp but, by the faintest miracle, still alive, the shallow rise and fall of their chests betraying a spark not yet stolen. Without hesitation Jace sprang off his horse, cutting them down with trembling hands, lowering them gently to the ground, and whispering assurances in the soft, respectful tone only a man familiar with too many funerals could muster, then carrying them across his saddle toward his ranch with a determination so fierce it burned the path behind him, because no matter who had done this, no matter what message they hoped to send, Jace Calderon wasn't the kind of man who ignored a cry for life. Over the next hours he nursed their breaths back from the edge, offering water, warmth, and the safety of his small cabin, until one girl, Nina, the eldest, finally woke, her frightened eyes fighting between instinctive mistrust and desperate hope as she whispered that they had been taken by white mask riders, men dressed like ghosts, men who hunted Apache children to scare the tribe off land a railroad company wanted to seize, men who would surely return once they realized their victims had slipped from death's grip. Hearing this, Jace felt the old fire he had buried long ago blaze up inside him. He had once been hired muscle for those same railroad men, riding with them until he saw enough cruelty to make him walk away forever, and now the very devils he turned his back on were haunting his land again, hurting innocents, trying to break families with fear. So he saddled up, loading his rifle and revolver with the quiet patience of a man who'd made peace with whatever came next, while telling Nina and her younger sister Tala to stay hidden, promising he'd return before the moon rose. Tracking the White Mask gang wasn't difficult. Their arrogance left footprints like they carved their evil into the soil, and by dusk Jace found their camp in a canyon, 5 men laughing around a fire as if torment were entertainment, and when one bragged about making an example of the Apache brats, Jace stepped into the firelight, shadows curling behind him like wings of justice, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut stone as he told them the girls lived, that their wickedness had failed, and he was there to finish what they had started, but not in the way they wanted. The gang reached for guns but Jace was faster, not with brutality but with precision born from years of survival, firing warning shots that shattered weapons from hands, knocking men down without killing them, leaving them crawling and cursing while he roped the leader by the wrists and dragged him to face the truth he'd been hiding beneath arrogance. The railroad company had paid them to clear out Apache territory, and the girls were meant to be evidence that the tribe had attacked first. A lie designed to justify violence and force the land grab. Anger, bitter and cold, tightened in Jace's chest as he bound the entire gang and drove them toward the nearest martial outpost, delivering them into justice with a testimony sharp enough to tear their lies open before the court. As dawn cracked across the sky again, Jace returned to his ranch to find Nina and Tala sitting outside beneath blankets, eyes bright with relief, offering him soft words of gratitude that carried deeper meaning than any medal, and though he simply tipped his hat, the warmth in his heart flickered like a lantern against the loneliness he'd grown used to. The Apache tribe, upon hearing what he'd done, met Jace with respect rather than suspicion, blessing his land with safe passage and promising that their people would stand with him should trouble ever return, and for the first time in years, he felt he truly belonged somewhere, not as a hired gun, not as a drifter, but as a protector who chose to do what was right when darkness tried to take root. That night, with the desert wind whispering peace through the sagebrush, Jace sat on his porch, gazing at the stars while Nina and Tala rested safely inside, and he knew the West was changing, full of danger, greed, and lawlessness, but as long as men like him kept standing, hope still had a fighting chance. And to every soul listening to this tale, every viewer riding along this dusty trail of courage and truth, let this story remind you that bravery isn't measured by strength but by the choice to stand when standing is hardest.
So keep supporting stories like this, subscribe to the channel for more powerful Wild West sagas, and ride with us again into the untamed frontier where every tale sparks a fire in the heart. The following days carried a strange quiet across Jace Calderon's ranch, the kind of silence that arrives after a storm but refuses to let anyone rest easy. and though Nina and Tala moved about with growing strength, helping with chores, tending to the horses, learning the rhythm of ranch life, the weight of what had happened still clung to them like a shadow. Jace could see it in the way Nina's eyes tracked every distant sound, and in how Tala slept lightly, waking at even the whisper of wind through the shutters, and he knew healing wasn't only about saving a life, but rebuilding the trust the world had tried to steal from them. One evening, as a blaze of gold washed the desert horizon, an Apache scout named Kona arrived at the ranch with grave news. The railroad company had denied involvement, claiming the white mask riders were rogue criminals, but rumors spread that a new group, far more organized, far more brutal, was heading toward Apache lands to finish what the first gang failed to do. Jace felt the old fire rise again, the one he thought he'd buried forever, and despite Kona's warning that the tribe planned to handle it internally, Jace saddled up his horse, saying simply that anyone hunting the innocent would have to ride through him first. Nina stepped forward then, her voice trembling but firm, insisting that she and Tala ride with him, not into danger, but back to their tribe, for their family needed to see them alive, and their people needed proof that hope still existed. The journey across the open plains was tense, dust rising behind them like a ghost tail, and more than once Jace felt eyes watching from ridges, shapes moving, shadows disappearing, but no threat emerged until they reached the ravine near Red Mesa, where 3 masked riders blocked the narrow pass, their rifles raised with cold certainty. Without hesitation, Jace positioned himself in front of the girls, calling out for the men to lay down their weapons since the marshal already had their comrades, but the riders laughed, claiming the law didn't reach this far, that the land would be cleared of troublemakers, and that the girls should have died the first time. Rage snapped through Jace, quick as a whip, and he fired with brutal precision, aiming for hands and weapons, not lives, sending the riders scrambling in panic as their rifles clattered to the dirt. Nina, trembling but brave, led Tala past the fallen men while Jace kept watch, and together they rode hard toward the Apache camp where warriors, elders, and family rushed forward in shock and joy at the sight of the 2 girls returning home. But the warmth of reunion faded quickly when the Apache chief, Tall Elk, revealed a truth Jace hadn't expected. The railroad company wasn't just expanding, they had discovered gold deposits beneath tribal land, and the attacks were part of a larger plan to erase every obstacle, including Jace himself for interfering. That night, as the tribe prepared for war and the campfires burned like stars fallen to earth, Jace stood alone on a ridge overlooking the valley, realizing the deadly truth that had been chasing him from the start. The fight wasn't about land, or cattle, or even the railroad. It was about power, control, the kind men would kill whole families to gain. And though Jace had walked this path reluctantly, fate had carved his role into the dust. He wasn't just a rancher anymore. He was the line between innocence and extinction. And he swore, beneath the cold desert moon, that no matter the cost, he would not let darkness claim the West without a fight.